So, one of the most insidious and awful things about health anxiety, especially cardiophobia, is when we're stressed and we're moving into these anxious states. These anxious states mimic actual health conditions. So, the anxiety itself can bring about chest pain, the anxiety itself can bring about dizziness. The anxiety itself can bring about shortness of breath and tingling in the fingers, and all these feelings coupled on top of this fear that there's something wrong with your heart, or there's fear that there's something wrong with your health, is incredibly cruel and an incredibly awful twist of nature that these anxiety symptoms will mimic actual physical symptoms. Furthermore, being stressed is in itself detrimental for your health. So you're going to get things like elevated blood pressure. You're going to get things like reduced heart rate variability. You're going to get other things like adrenal fatigue. If you're constantly redlining, if you're constantly going into this stress state of mind, it's making it very hard for the body to recover. So you get this vicious cycle by you worry about a condition, the anxiety mimics the condition you're worried about, that makes you stressed, which is then putting stress on your body, which is then, bringing you round and round and round in this circle of, it's like being ground down, slowly and surely ground down by the stress and the anxiety. We're putting our focus completely on our health all the time, completely on our heart all the time. And that in turn is slowly, over a lot of time, actually causing damage to the things we're worried about. The good news is, all of this is completely reversible. Practical tips that you can use in the moment to manage stress and anxiety are, of course, breath work, meditation, and stress management. So, getting out for a walk, getting out and doing some moderate exercise, looking after your mind and body. We all need something to still the mind and move the body. Now, another cruel twist of health anxiety, certainly cardiophobia, is that people are going to be afraid to go and do the movement. They're going to be afraid to go and do the very thing that is good for them for fear that it's going to have a detrimental effect on them. So these people can get stuck in a real horrible, awful, vicious cycle. But like I say, this cycle can be broken. Now, if the exercise is not helping, if the meditation is not helping, if the breath work is not helping, and by that I mean you're practicing it, but you're still coming back to this idea, it's not dealing with that underlying anxiety, that nagging voice that's gnawing away at you and grinding you down. If that is your experience, then the right sort of therapy can be really beneficial. Now, what's the right sort of therapy? The right sort of therapy is the therapy that takes that away from you. You don't need to understand your condition anymore. You don't need to dive into it and really understand the nuts and bolts of it, because very often people can get a very deep understanding of their condition without actually solving the condition. The right sort of therapy is the therapy that breaks that loop and can set you free of that anxiety for good going forward, so that it's just not there anymore. And in the interim, while you're working on that, sometimes that can happen very quickly, but it's very useful to bring these healthy habits into play. So your breath work, your meditation, your exercise, do the things that are going to be good for you despite the anxiety. and see how that works. But if that anxiety is still there, then therapy can be very, very useful. If you want more information on that, please do get in touch. Also, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them below and I will get back to you. Have a great day.